Perfect. All right. Hi, I'm Jessica Glochetsky. I've worked for the city of Akron for almost 15 years now. I will try not to speak way too quickly through this because that's kind of what I do. So yeah, I guess we'll just start. I struggled with this a lot, to be honest. I really had a hard time. I can talk about all of the work that I do and all of the projects that I do for Akron. I can talk about those all day long. In fact, I'm going to be at the Water Quality Conference in Cincinnati next week, and you can come see me talk about HABs if you really want to. But when it came to actually putting this together and talking about myself, I found it really challenging. And I think, yeah, I deleted this 4 times before I actually finally put something together. And I think, as I move through this, it'll maybe be a little bit more obvious, like why I struggled with putting down my experience and actually, how my vulnerabilities and how I got to where I am. So I was a Jessica Marie Jones. When I was in high school, there were 3 of us, Jessica Marie Joneses, and one of them was a troublemaker. It wasn't me, but we all got called down to the office. So when I had the opportunity to get married and pick a really awesome last name, because that's how that works, I did. So Glochetsky, I moved up in the world. I was born and raised in Ravenna. It's in Portage County. Yeah, it's Ravenna. My parents were divorced. My parents were remarried. My mother was divorced and remarried again. So I have a full brother, Michael. I have a half sister, 3 stepbrothers, 1 stepsister. And my family, we grew up poor. There were definitely some hard times during my childhood. But then I grew up, I got married, and I love my family, my husband, Brian, who is watching this. And my 2 children, Asher and Sari. I don't know if I mentioned how much I love my children, but here they are again. And when you're kind of thinking about who you are and your journey to where you are going, or to this moment in time, like these things are all, I think, pretty important. So these are my children. They look as happy as they possibly can right there in that picture, because they're both almost teenagers. One's a teenager and one's not. And then through the pandemic, I collected a bunch of pets. And so I really like to take care of people. I like to take care of animals, obviously. I think that is a big part of who I am. I graduated from Ravenna High School, 1999. I was 11th in the class of 350. My senior year, I was really ready to be out of Ravenna, like very much ready to be out of Ravenna. So I took the ASVAB. I was ready to join the Army, and took the ASVAB, got my score back. I was 17. They were like, hey, you can pick from any of these jobs. And one of the jobs on there was water engineer. And I said, I have no idea what that does, but that one sounds good. Sign me up. And then about a week before my 18th birthday, I said, oh my God, I can't join the Army. That's a terrible plan. And so I didn't. And then I almost joined the Peace Corps. And my Latin teacher in high school had been in the Peace Corps and talked me out of it, which I am grateful for. So then I went to college. I went to Kent State University, graduated in 2003 with focus in biology and geology. I started in education. I've always been really passionate about learning and about talking about things that I know. I like to give people facts. I like to share things that I know, and I like to learn new things. So in high school, my high school biology teacher is like, well, you like to do that and you like biology, you should be a teacher. I said, cool, let's do that. So I signed up, went to Kent State, first day, my first class. I go to class, and it's teaching you teachers how to use like slide projectors, and the final project is going to be designing a bulletin board. And I was like, oh, I think I'm in the wrong place. My next class was science for educators. And I remember going in this huge lecture hall with about 50 people in it, and there were balloons, and they all had the different element symbols on them. And the professor was like, okay, we're going to drop these and see which ones fall faster, and then we're going to figure out why. And I said, oh boy, I am in the wrong major. And so I walked out of that class. I walked straight to my advisor, changed my major, and got a whole new set of classes. So that's kind of, I like to be challenged. I think that, as we go through this, you'll see that as well. I graduated in 2003, like I said, just for fun, because I enjoy learning things. I studied Japanese at Tri-C. I attempted to go to grad school 3 times. I applied at Kent State, University of Akron, and Cleveland State University. I have 0 graduate degrees. Switch. I can't get it. There we go. So recently I had my staff and I all take the Clifton Strength Finder. It was something that we had done here at work as a leadership team, and I found it to be really useful. And I strongly agree with my results. And so I kind of wanted to throw them out there because I feel that these are definitely themes in my life that I keep revisiting in a million different ways. So achiever, I take satisfaction in working hard, being productive. I get up, I go all day until I'm basically too exhausted to go anymore. And then I go to bed and I start the whole thing the next day. I'm always moving. Individualization. People are really important to me. My staff is really important to me. My family is very important to me. And, I feel like you can find the good in anybody if you spend enough time looking into it. I want to know things. I think input and learner on there. I want to know everything. If I don't know how to do something and I think I can learn it, then I'm going to try and learn it. And communication. I talk a lot. I talk a lot for those of you who know me. But I definitely don't disagree that is a strength. So, but anyway, I decided, okay, I'm going to ask my friends what they think are characteristics that define who I am. And so my friends gave some answers there. They all are on the slide. Insatiable desire to know things, determined to overcome challenges, authentic, refuse to give up, tells people what they need to hear, and trigger puller, doing things, just doing things. So hobbies, things that I do, some more things that kind of, I guess, just define who I am. I like to make stuff. I like to know how things work. So maybe it's not a surprise. I like to garden. We make sauerkraut every year, which is in the upper right there. And then the really tall flower next to my house there, I have spent the last 13 years genetically selecting ironweed to grow the tallest possible ironweed that I can. And I've been pretty successful at it. So if anyone's interested in like 13-foot tall ironweed seed, you let me know. Some other hobbies, I like to make things. My staff work outside a lot, so they find bones and they bring them back to me very excitingly. And then I make weird crafts with those. One day I was like, you know what, it can't be that hard to make soap. So I learned how to make soap. I like to make things and give things to other people. Like making and gifting things is my definite love language. So I think, going kind of back to those Clifton Strength Finders, I think some of those are kind of obvious. I have this desire. I want to continue to learn things all the time, and I'm never done. I had a lot of jobs before this one. I was kind of surprised when I put all of these down. I had a lot of jobs. So some of these, I worked 2 or 3 jobs at any given point while I was in college. I paid for my own way through college, and then continued to pay for several years after receiving a degree. And then I really couldn't find a job in my field in Northeast Ohio, and I really didn't want to move. So I jumped around from job to job. You'll see on here, I went back to Walmart many times, like a bad ex. I went back to Walmart and they took me back every time. So I must have been doing something right. And I remember in 2007, my aunt at a family reunion brought this job posting, and it was the most ridiculous job posting I've ever seen. It looked like a Wild West kind of like wanted picture, but it was for a watershed ranger position with the city of Akron. And I didn't think it was real at the time, but I applied because I was working at Walmart, and I was very done working at Walmart at that point. And I applied and I didn't hear anything back for like 9 months. And so I'd given up on it. And then after 9 months, I got an interview and they hired me. And I started here as a watershed ranger, and have worked to continue to build our watershed department. We do source water protection, but like half of my staff are trained as operators as well. So, we're knowledgeable with water treatment plant. We're knowledgeable with what goes into water treatment. So my personal mission, and this is basically how I live my life. I just want to leave the world a tiny bit better than it was before I was in it. I hadn't finished this slide, and then my husband was like, no, it's done. It's done. This is a good slide. So it's done. Anyway, so for the city of Akron, I've been here for like almost 15 years. I manage a whole bunch of different programs for drinking water and for watershed protection. Some of them are EPA compliance and some of them are just best practices. Do the Upper Cuyahoga, which is about 207 square miles of watershed that we maintain. But when we add the middle in, we move it up to about 466 square miles of watershed. I have 10 staff, including myself. We manage about 20,000 acres of property that's actually owned by the city of Akron in Portage and Geauga counties, which is exciting because those people don't actually receive the water that we produce, but they definitely get to use those resources, the different reservoirs up within the watershed that our residents don't get access to. My oldest dam is 107 years old. So, there's a lot of history to the plant. I really, really enjoy the history in the water industry in general, but the history of this plant, I think, is super exciting as well. I mean, I could talk about all of this stuff forever. But I definitely wouldn't be here where I'm sitting now. I wouldn't be running the, watershed or anything like that without, people who have helped me develop my career, who've been my cheerleaders, my mentors over time. And so Dr. Cutright is at the University of Akron, and I met her probably almost a decade ago. And we developed a really great relationship, and she's always been somebody that I can bounce ideas off of. She's always been very supportive and challenging me to push a little harder, to work a little harder, to think outside of the box. Jeff Bernowski is my boss, and he didn't have to he didn't have to help me do any of the things that I did to get here, but he gave me an opportunity, and I took it, and he's just been immensely helpful, and I really helped me guide my own journey through the city. Very supportive, even on my kind of weird, crazy ideas that I bring to him sometimes. And then Kimberly Reeder from Veolia, I respect her over the moon and back. She's an amazing person. And, I bring things to her as well. Like, here's some issues that I don't know how to deal with, and she has been in the water industry for her majority of her career as well. So she's been able to guide me. And honestly, I would not be here, would not be the person I am if these people hadn't, kind of adopted me and taken me under their wing. So I want to talk about some career challenges. When I started here at the water plant, there were about 70 people or so who worked here, and there were 3 women. I was the 4th woman, and it was definitely challenging. The whole women being catty in the workplace was definitely a thing, I think, because we all had to kind of protect ourselves just from being in this really male-dominated workplace. And I'm so grateful that those things have changed. Like, water supply now here, we're diverse. We have a wide diversity of people and different ages and things. And it means a ton to me that, we've been able to be more progressive. But when I started, that was, it was a really difficult time. And so I started, the housing bubble crashed. We had the 2008 recession. I had just gotten hired in April. We were already taking like furlough by the end of that year, worried about whether or not I was going to have a job. So the city decided the way they were going to deal with the recession was they were going to let people retire early, called it the VSP, the Voluntary Separation Program. And so what happened was this giant exodus of all of this knowledge and experience as all of these people who were within 5 years of retirement got bought out and retired. And so all of a sudden you have all of these people who knew everything and they're gone, and there was no succession training, like planning, none of that. So all of this knowledge was gone and there were all of these voids to fill. And I went to Jeff Bernowski and I was like, hey, I would love to do this really hard thing, which at the time was writing a watershed control program for the long-term stage 2 enhanced surface water treatment rule, which was Cryptosporidium and Giardia for the majority of that. And we're the only, well, we'll get to that. Anyway, so he gave me that opportunity. He helped me develop that program, helped me through, learning that whole process to working with the EPA, working throughout the city. I was very new into my career at this time. My boss liked to say I was ambitious, but the way that he said ambitious made it a 4-letter word. And I don't think that he intended it to sound like that, but I came off as very intimidating to other members of the supervisory team because I was ambitious, because I always want to push things a little bit farther. I want to do things a little bit better. And so when ambitious or ambition, the word ambition is used, and I hear it sounding like a 4-letter word, like a bad word, then all of a sudden I start to doubt, am I really doing this? Am I on the right course? Am I doing the right thing for the people of Akron? Am I doing the right thing for my utility? Am I doing the right thing for Northeast Ohio? And it's something that I constantly ask myself, even now. The ambition is a 4-letter word is a joke between Jeff and I at the moment. In the bottom of the screen there, I actually Googled ambition is a 4-letter word, and I don't think I'm the only person. I liked the list that they gave me. Is ambition good or bad? What's the negative side of ambition? I mean, just like anything, you can have good and bad sides to it. But I think that, what I want to convey to people is that it's not bad to be ambitious, right? It's not bad to want to push, to make things better, to think outside of the box, to look at something from a completely different perspective. And I really want to stress that because it's something I really did struggle with for a long portion of my career, feeling like, I'm being selfish for wanting to do more work or wanting to do a better job. I was the youngest person to be promoted to watershed superintendent, which happened in 2012. I was the first woman to be the watershed superintendent, only woman currently, and as the first woman to become a manager for the Public Utilities Bureau. So for water, wastewater in the city of Akron, I'm the first woman to be a manager. So all of that, and I don't have a PE. Another joke that I commonly say is I'm not an engineer, but I want to take an aside. I can understand why people might be jealous of my job when this is kind of what I get to go out and look at occasionally. My staff gets to look at that more than I do. They take pictures, they bring them back, so then I get to look at it that way. No, but so the watershed control program, that's kind of what I was talking to with the long-term stage 2 enhanced surface water treatment rule. It's a US EPA requirement for Cryptosporidium and Giardia. And so the city of Akron, we did our first round of Cryptosporidium sampling in 2006 to 2008, and we were required by 2012 to have extra treatment, basically, to say, to go further and make sure that Cryptosporidium was not making it through the treatment process. So we had a watershed program. It was kind of a sunny day program. People went out when they wanted to and drove around the watershed and, stopped at the dams or whatever, but we really didn't have a major focus at the time on water quality. It was much more just protecting the city's assets, the properties, the dams, the land. So in 2012, we had the only Ohio EPA approved watershed control program in the state, and only one of 3 nationally. A lot of utilities went with other options for that. I know that there are other utilities in the state of Ohio who now have watershed control programs, but at that point in time, we basically had to make it up as we went because there wasn't really a defined plan or a template at the time. So that was definitely a challenge. It was a long time in the making. Here's a picture proving I do get to occasionally go outside and do science, not often, but sometimes they let me outside. And you know, the biggest thing in the watershed control program, one of the biggest challenges I think from that is, how do you prove prevention? If you prevent something, you can't exactly prove that you would have had it. So proving prevention, coming up with measurables, those things were definitely challenges that we had to figure out here, and that, you know, I had to address in this plan. So we ran the watershed control program officially from 2012 to 2018 for 5 years, until the next round of LT2 sampling. So in our first round, that's the blue one on the side, and you see the yellow highlights there. That's how many times they found cryptosporidium in our raw water sampling. So we had 0.89, so not quite 1 whole cyst of oocyst of cryptosporidium in our raw water supply, but that put us into a bin that made us have to do extra treatment. So our second round, 2015, 2017, you can see there's no yellow on there. Not gonna lie that I spent 2 years, once a month for 2 years, real nervous that, you know, this was gonna come back and say, oh, well, you know what, all this work you did kind of didn't work. But here we are, 2 years, 0 cysts over the course of 2 years. And so that's a big deal. It's really hard to prove prevention. You really have to come up with some interesting metrics that aren't necessarily, you know, it's not like, hey, I can look at the tap or the raw water versus the tap water and tell how much of whatever I've removed. It's not quite that simple. So that was definitely a challenge, and we were really excited that the program that we had put together had actually, for over 5 years, had really been successful. Some of the things that we looked at, we were trying to, and we're using watershed and source water monitoring to not just monitor. Like we're looking in this slide, for example, is average phosphorus from 2012 to actually this year. So even past the end of we still have the watershed control program, we still operate it, but we're no longer required to report it necessarily. We keep everything here, all of our annual reports and stuff, because we were able to step down a bin and we no longer needed that extra log credit for compliance. But anyway, what we're looking at here is the phosphorus above the reservoir. So that's Lake Rockwell, it's our drinking water supply there. And we sample the Cuyahoga River, we sample Eckert Ditch, which are 2 tributaries into the reservoir, and then we sample below the dam. And we're looking at, and these are average phosphorus numbers throughout the year. We sample once a month. But here we go. We've been able to prove we are preventing something. We use this data to go out and find pollution and try to mitigate that. Same thing with harmful algal blooms. I'm not going to spend a whole lot more time on this because I'm belaboring the point, but you know, looking at and finding these places, like no one else was doing this. No one else was looking at, you know, how do we take a harmful algal bloom, and we don't want to use copper algicide anymore. We don't want to just treat it at the plant and deal with it at the, you know, through the treatment process. We want to mitigate that. And so that's what we did here. And a big chunk of like what I've spent my career kind of working on and collaborating with the University of Akron, collaborating with, you know, different consulting firms and people, and just trying to make it better, right? Another slide here, just kind of showing that we were able to mitigate harmful algal blooms. We haven't had a harmful algal bloom in Lake Rockwell in 5 years. The first year, people said, you probably got lucky. The second year, they're like, yeah, it was a good year. The third year was like, COVID. The fourth year, COVID. And so, I think now that we've had 5 years, we've been able to prove that the program that we have is pretty effective, especially since our reservoir is 107 years old, that has 107 years of legacy phosphorus sitting on the bottom of it. Another career challenge that I had, funding source water protection. Definitely a difficult thing to do because we need money in water. We need money in my 107-year-old treatment plant. I can't take that money away from the treatment plant to put into source water protection. So, we had to get creative and try to figure out, how do you fund source water protection? It's important, the water that you bring in, definitely, it's going to change how much money it costs to treat and the end product. And I got a lot of pushback from this too. Like, oh, you can't do forestry. You can't do forestry management. You can't cut down trees because you're an environmentalist, because you do source water protection. And if you cut down trees, that's the opposite of what you're supposed to be doing. But we actually found that, our program, we were able to have a sustainable timber harvesting program, and that we use that money to fund and reinvest back into the watershed. Another way we do it is grants. I write a lot of grants. I ask people for money all the time. So another career challenge, I'm not an engineer, but I am a class 3 water supply operator. I went to get my class 4, but I was not eligible for a class 4. And when I started working towards a class 4, the EPA reviewed my file and said that I was not actually qualified for my class 3. Because they're saying source water protection and watershed management doesn't count. And so that was definitely, it was something that really rocked my foundation here. Like, I take pride, I work hard. I worked hard to get my class 3. I work hard to know what's going on in the plant, to understand what's happening here, to be available as a resource. So, I got a lawyer and I fought it, and I got to keep my class 3, and I continue to, I feel, use that. And I really appreciate that, but it was definitely something that was difficult period of time for me. Professional accomplishments. I have a really hard time looking at the positive things that I have in my life. I can focus on the negative things all day long. I always want to find problems that I can make solutions for. But I do have professional accomplishments. I served on the Northeast District AWWA committee up here for 4 years, doing party planning committee, basically putting on all the local meetings with a team of wonderful people. Like I said, I have class 3 water operator license, and I'm a certified lake manager. I think one of the things that I wanted to stress with the class 3, look into the class 4, I understand that, why we have it the way it is, as far as like they want operators to move up. But I think that we're going to experience a point where we're cutting out a lot of people who have a diversity of background knowledge, a diversity in the way that they approach problems, in the way that people kind of will operate in general, and that aren't traditional operators, people like myself who are in source water protection or stormwater, engineers, lab analysts, all of these people who don't have that time that counts towards their certifications anymore, that are no longer going to be considered for class 4s. And I worry that one day that's going to come back on us and make it a lot more difficult for utilities to operate. And we lose that spark, all that different diverse backgrounds that we could be improving water and looking at water treatment like from a different angle than just from straight up operations. That's my soapbox. I'll get off it now. Professional accomplishments. I won a few awards. If you are an organization that makes awards, the glass ones are kind of cool, but they're impossible to take pictures of. So just throwing that out there. This slide basically shows that all I do all day long is talk with my hands. I really like to give presentations. I like to talk about the stuff that we've done here, the stuff that I've accomplished, the stuff my team accomplishes. I give plant tours all the time. I do almost all of the education for the Water Bureau, including water plant tours. I do careers in water, watershed stewardship, source water protection, all sorts of things. I'm also published. We've done a variety of research here, mostly looking at harmful algal bloom mitigation, but also looking at some novel ways to beneficially reuse alum sludge to potentially capture phosphorus upstream in the same watershed. So that was really cool. We actually got a grant and were able to install that system in one of our 2 tributaries. And it's kind of exciting just to look at, you know, we know alum is in the sludge. We know alum, you know, you can put alum on the bottom of a reservoir to capture that phosphorus. So why couldn't we take the sludge, and we know that the alum isn't fully used, and try to catch that phosphorus before it goes in the reservoir? So that was exciting. And because I'm a crazy person, you know, I wanted to start doing the work that we've spent so much time on in the upper Cuyahoga, on the middle Cuyahoga as well, and bring that back to Akron and bring, you know, I mentioned in passing earlier that people in Portage and Geauga counties get to appreciate these beautiful reservoirs in their backyards, but the people in Akron, which is Summit County, do not. So I want to bring that value back to Akron in whatever way I can. You know, and so we're going to start trying to do a whole lot more river sampling and focusing on recreation and ecotourism, but also pollution mitigation, the same stuff that we're doing in the upper. So that's where what we are currently embarking on, and my staff are amazing because there are 10 of us, and I ask them to go above and beyond all of the time. I challenge them constantly, and they're such an amazing group of people. And honestly, I wouldn't be here if I didn't have such a great group of people. Each one of them has a diverse background, brings something to the program. I tell everybody, I'm like, there are a million different niches that you can fill. If you find a passion, you know, and we can find a way to make that part of the job, let's do it. Let's figure it out, because some of the best ideas and some of the funding opportunities that we've had, or some of the crazier grant suggestions, you know, come from people who, you know, don't necessarily always have a voice at the table in those kind of in any of those situations. Again, back to that, you know, Clifton Strength Finder kind of thing, individualization. I want to work with each one of my staff and figure out, where are you going to fit the best? How can I make your career, you know, what you want it to be, and how can you make this program better? What do you bring to it, and how can we utilize that? It's also really important to me too. I know that the water industry as a whole kind of struggles with work-life balance, and I think that's something that we're really going to have to start considering for real. Or we're going to start having a very hard time trying to hire operators. I know here at Akron, we've been struggling to attract people to even apply for the job. And I think a lot of it has to do with we don't have a culture that supports a healthy work-life balance. And so that's something ridiculously important to me, right? My staff work better when they are happy and they have that chance to go home and recharge and come back and be their best selves. I also think it's really important that, you know, they feel that their work matters. They feel that when they come in and they do something, that they're doing it for a reason, and that they understand what that reason is. And I also think you definitely, people who work for me have to be pretty flexible, and I will challenge them. So, you know, I think people want that. People want to be challenged. People want to work. They want to know that what they do makes a difference. And so those are kind of the core values that I have for my team. You know, I want that. And I think, you know, coming up in a culture here that was kind of toxic when I first started, I think that's probably why it's really important to me now that I have a culture at least in the watershed, within my own staff, I have a culture that my staff feel they want to come to work. And that makes me ridiculously happy. And they're really just amazing people. A group of them ran on the Akron relay team this year. There they are taking a picture on the boat, proving to me that I'm still in the office and they get to go outside. You know, and I think, you know, something with that, I try to also, it might kind of seem silly, but it's important to me that my staff feel valued and that I mentioned this, they feel challenged. So it might feel kind of silly. I found these playground chipmunks and I liberated them from the junkyard and they got city badges, and I hide them in different places around the watershed so that my staff have to actually go out and go into places they wouldn't necessarily have gone, you know, unless they're looking for these chipmunks. We had a donut bracket because meetings can be really long and boring. And so we started a donut bracket for local donut shops here in Northeast Ohio. And we ate a lot of donuts during our weekly meetings each week. And we'll pick that back up. We had to take a break because we were really so tired of donuts. We'll pick it back up in January to ruin all of our New Year's resolutions. But trying to come up with unique training opportunities, trying to come up with ways to, you know, develop the team to help them work better as a team. And for all of us, like I said, there's this big diversity and background of the people who work for me, and everyone gets along. And I think a lot of that is because I spend time trying to find ways for us to all work together to do team development and also trying to understand where my staff are coming from. So, you know, one of the questions that I need to answer is why water, right? Why water? So, you know, it started with, I was going to join the Army and randomly chose to be a water engineer. And then I went, you know, to school and I studied biology and geology. I love both of those. I'm very passionate about both of those, because who doesn't love shiny rocks and who doesn't love water, right? You know, and it took me a while to get back here. I had many jobs, as you guys saw, but I think that I was kind of always destined to be in water. You know, it feels like from the start of my career till now, it was kind of leading me to this place. So I don't know, I rambled a lot there, but thanks for listening.
Thank you for an awesome presentation. That was great. I love all the photos. So we need some questions in the chat. I have some pre-submitted questions that I'll get started with, but please, if you have anything to ask, put it in the chat or unmute yourself, and we will get some answers to your questions. One of the pre-submitted questions that we had, which I think is a great segue into our Q&A, was what is the most rewarding part of your work?
That's a hard question because there's a lot that I mean, first, I would never have, like, had you asked me when I was 17, if I thought this was a job and that I would be doing it, I would say, what's a watershed? I don't know. I think being able to see definite improvement over time has been really nice. But I mean, I get to go out on Lake Rockwell and no one else does except for my staff. And that's pretty awesome. And it's, you know, one of these things that I'm really fortunate that the city has been able to protect. And that's probably a highlight, at least.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing. So Jordan M in the chat said, what would you say the most challenging part of your journey is?
I think that I almost quit 4 times in my first year. Coming into this industry and coming into it in a relatively toxic culture, I did not feel welcomed. I did not feel wanted. I felt like the work that I did was you work too hard. Please stop working too hard. This is the government. You're making us look bad. Like, I can't handle that. I cannot handle that. And so like the first couple of years, I constantly, would be working very hard and trying to improve things and bringing ideas to leadership, and then to get told, hey, you're new, and you're a little too ambitious. So you just go do this one task that we told you to do. And even if you're done with it, don't do anything else. So I almost quit many times. But so I think, just finding my place here and finding my place in this industry.
Well, one question that comes up for me when you say that is like, how, as you're going through that first year and you're having those challenges, what was the turning point? Did you do something for yourself, or was it the people around you, or?
Well, a bunch of people retired, not all of them, but we had the voluntary separation, and a lot of people took advantage of that. But then that gave me the opportunity to start working with Jeff Bernowski, who's my boss. And he was really supportive, and he was really like, here's this giant chunk of work that needs to be done, and I don't want to do it. You want to do it? And I was like, yes, please, I would love to do that. And I think that, being able to pour my energy into something that I felt really actually mattered and made a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is really amazing how the people around you like change a job that you weren't sure about or you thought about quitting into something that ends up being your dream job. People are so important.
For real.
So what advice would you give a new employee now that you're an insider?
I think even if the people right around you aren't exactly like happy, like you don't have a great culture, there are people out there that will notice, you put in the effort and you remember who you work for, right? Like, I know who I work for. I work for the residents who drink our drinking water, and I make sure that everything I do is for them, is in the best interest, not of necessarily the city of Akron, the people of Akron. And so sometimes it can be really easy to let the people around you, work for the government, and there's definitely the stereotype of government mentality, and it's definitely a thing. Don't let other people put out your flame, because there are people out there who will support, who will see the value that you bring, as long as you keep putting that work out into the world.
Mm-hmm. Megan asked if you have any tips on how to learn how to write grants and navigate the grant writing landscape.
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie. The first grant that I wrote here, I had a manager come to me and he said, the 319 grant is due in 2 weeks and we have to apply. So find a project. Also, I'm going to Jamaica for 2 weeks. Peace. And I'm like, wait, what? And I had a co-op, an engineering co-op at the time. And he and I sat down and we drew some pictures on a whiteboard that would eventually become our, using the alum residuals to capture phosphorus upstream. And I submitted drawings from a whiteboard, and I guess I made a good enough case. Grant writing, it takes a minute, and you have to be prepared to not get grants all the time. You're going to throw a lot out there. A lot of times too, if you don't get a grant, a lot of times you get feedback, and if you don't get feedback, you can request that. And that has helped me kind of hone in on some of the language that you need to use, because you also have a limit of how much words you can put into anything. So being able to explain what you want to do concisely, even though they want details, can be a little tricky, but getting that feedback and just putting them out there.
Yeah. Did you have that idea for the alum, the reuse of alum, before you sat down, or
vaguely.
Did that all come together in 2 weeks?
Vaguely. I had seen a presentation on harmful algal bloom mitigation, and this guy wanted to put alum in a river, and we had done that here before my time. Like in the 90s, they decided to dump alum in the river, And I hate that idea because we already have a 100-year-old reservoir. I don't need more sediment. So wouldn't it be cool if we could take it out of upstream? And if we could measure it, sure, we have alum, we could measure this out. It would be super cool. That was it. There were no other plans. I'm glad I had an engineering co-op because I'm not an engineer, but he was able to at least bring some, actual engineering to it. So it wasn't just me making stuff up. I mean, it was a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think the like reuse of like sludge, like you're talking about in water treatment residuals is so cool. So I'm definitely gonna, I took a picture of that paper. I'm gonna find it and read it.
I'll send it to
That's
you.
awesome. That one, thank you. I appreciate that. That's cool that that one came to fruition. So we have Josh asked, what things helped improve the toxic work culture that you experienced at first?
Finding allies here, finding people who wanted to work hard and wanted to do a good job, right? As opposed to just coming in and getting a paycheck, right? Punch a time clock, get a paycheck, sit in front of your desk or, whatever. Finding those few key people here who really cared and investing my energy in them. And I'm not going to say it was easy because it's really easy to let all of that negativity and all of those people talking about you like, oh, well, are you brown nosing this? Or, you're trying to make us look bad or whatever. I have these little Post-it notes from one of my bosses. When I started, he used to leave me passive aggressive Post-it notes on my desk that were like, you work for the government, act like it, or you're making me look bad. So you need to stop that. I still have them, these little, sometimes you just can't make this stuff up. But yeah, finding people who share your energy, they're out there. It's, and water's so much better. It's so much better. It's full of passionate people. I definitely think, that the culture has changed and I think it needs to continue changing, but I definitely see it in a positive light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have, on that same line of thinking, you had mentioned in your presentation that you were like as you start needing more operators, that one of your goals is for better work-life balance. Do you have any plans for how you will achieve that or help achieve that?
That's a challenge. And that's not something that I've been able to communicate to the plant here. Like, I so want to go in and fix things. I like to fix problems. I like to find problems to fix. And, I have thoughts on how I would do it, but I don't have the ability here to do that. I can make suggestions and, talking to, like at the state conference earlier this year, there was the panel with water leaders from across the state, talking about the working through the pandemic and hiring. And, I don't know that we're really considering or thinking a whole lot about work-life balance for operators right now. And I think we really almost kind of, it can't just be city by city or utility by utility. We have to come up with something that, makes this job more desirable, but also make sure that people like I talked to our operator, he's working 16 hours today, he's working 16 hours tomorrow, he's working 16 hours the next day. I'm just like, we can't keep doing that. It's not sustainable. And so we have to figure out a way to attract people to be operators, and then we have to make sure that we give them the tools they need to be happy and healthy, and that we support those things, right? And we don't just say we do, we actually do. We support those and we go to bat for our employees.
Yeah, Josh and I have noticed, well, I'm speaking for Josh. Josh, I was okay, I clump you in with me, but we put on these career panels for the YP committee as well. And it's interesting because it's geared towards everybody that wants to know about the water industry, but we mostly get like undergrad students. And it just seems there's like such a, like there really does seem to be a disconnect between people, like the perceived opportunities at utilities or as an operator and things like that. In our most recent one we hosted a couple weeks ago, we had an operator and he's like, yeah, I noticed it too. He has a college degree and like there's, he has all the same qualifications that the people that were on that call would, but it just seems to be like people don't know what the what it looks like and what those opportunities are.
I think
So
too,
that's
one
something
of
we're
the
working
issues,
on.
I would say one of the other issues is that people, it's not necessarily marketed toward, like when we're looking for operators, we're looking for a very specific type of person, and we're excluding a whole lot of people who could be really great operators. We also haven't kept up with, I think at least here, and other utilities could weigh in on this, but we have, the plants run, during my time, we went from running the plant by hand to running the plant through SCADA. And I don't know that we've really kept the operator job descriptions up to date with that. So I think we rely a lot on SCADA. We haven't evolved that operator job to be challenging, to pick up new things. And I think that's something we have to look at too, is that, we have these people and they want to work, and, a lot of SCADA does the traditional operator job now that, we could get some, I don't know, where I'm going with that, but right.
Yeah. We have a couple more questions. I do want to make sure because we are approaching 6:30, before people start hopping off, we do like a family photo before the end of this. If everybody could turn their cameras on, I know the most daunting part of the call. And we just take screenshots just so to have them.
Turn them on now, you mean?
Yeah, the video camera so we can see your face. And I'll take a screenshot of it.
And smile.
If you're comfortable with it, you don't, no pressure if not. All right, I'm gonna have to do this in two, I think. All right. Oh, hold on. People are still turning them on. All right, 3, 2, 1.
Water.
Water.
Say water.
Okay, I'm gonna do one more. All right, 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Thank you all so much. Jessica, do you have a couple more minutes, or do you need to hop off?
No, I'm good, sure.
Okay, cool. Awesome. We have another question that I got. Well, we have a point from Megan just on your last point. She said, I don't know if you're seeing the chat, but she said, I've often thought OEPA should form some sort of collaboration to form some sort of academy or other group to help recruit operators in the field. Because she agrees with you. Yeah, that all sounds awesome. I think there definitely is opportunity for these kind of conversations and connections and things. There was a question about if you have any advice for people that are in entry-level positions in water. This person who asked is in consulting, and they want to get experience in in like a variety of different areas.
I think, when there are opportunities to learn, you take them, even if they aren't necessarily directly, right? If someone's like, hey, do you want to learn this? Or, hey, do you want to go to this training? Take advantage of those as much as possible and just have a diverse, I collect information, right? Because I like to do that, but having a diverse background of knowledge makes you a better operator, makes you a better employee, makes you, more marketable to, be promoted or to be moved into specific positions, throughout the utility, or even like in my case, like throughout the city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like in my experience, the things I've learned the most from are often the things that I like desperately didn't want to do, but kind of forced myself, or someone was really nudging me to do it. Josh did ask, is a pressing question, how does the donut bracket work?
Yeah, so basically my staff came up with, they were like, hey, we should do a donut bracket. And I'm like, okay, sure, because we have an hour-long watershed meeting once a week, every Wednesday morning. And so everybody, we just kind of like split up. And so two people, like I would pick the donut place by my house and someone would pick their favorite donut place, and then we'd it's glazed. So you have to do glazed only, and then you can get their specialty donuts for anything else if you need a tiebreaker. Then everybody votes on that. And so whichever one obviously, has the most votes, we actually got a bunch of people from the plant to start wandering up here. They didn't buy the donuts, but they wander up here so they can vote in the donut bracket. So
Yeah.
we're moving into that second phase soon. It's gonna be January because we were all getting real tired of donuts for a hot minute. That's
Yeah.
when it
When did you stop? How many months did you have to take off? Or weeks?
We stopped at the end of September.
Yeah.
I think,
a good
yeah,
amount
it's
of
like,
time.
I think the end of September, maybe the very beginning of October, and we're like, yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna take like 3 months off and we'll revisit
Yeah.
this later.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to ruin donuts for yourself.
Exactly, right?
Do you have any upcoming fun projects that you have on your radar for the watershed?
So we're looking to install a crowdsourced hydrology sites on the upper and the middle Cuyahoga rivers so that we can get river users to we're going to put flow gauges and do transects of the river so that we can do it for nutrient loading, bacteria loading, things like that, but so that we can also have that information available to the public at any point in time. Everybody who has a cell phone can just snap a picture of how much water's in the river. And then we can use that as a tool for people to decide where and how they would like to recreate on the river, if it's safe,
Mhm.
because, the Cuyahoga River people, are coming back and the water quality is great. And eventually the Gorge Dam is going to be removed, which is going to be super exciting. And, we want to make sure that the people coming can use the river safely and that we can also use that information to make good decisions and look for pollution to help, make the river cleaner.
Mhm. Yeah. Do you already have that information, like of when it's safe, where available, or is that, and this is sort of just pointing them to it, or is that also part of it?
No, that's the whole project will be
Oh, okay.
putting those in. I anticipate in the next year, we're gonna install 4, 2 in the upper Cuyahoga and 2 in the middle. And then based on the success of those or the popularity, we want to use those 2 as education touch points for residents of Akron, residents that aren't from Akron, just, how can you be a good steward to the river? And people care, right? People really love the Cuyahoga River up here. And so I'm really anticipating this to be a pretty successful program. I'm excited.
Mhm. How do you have any plans for how you'll disseminate that information to the public, or
Yes,
that they're available when they go up?
yes. This is all still kind of in the almost done planning, almost ready to implement phase. But we want to work with Akron Public Schools to get schools to adopt specific sites. We're going to work, we have the Keel Haulers group up here, which is a paddler community. We have Friends of the Crooked River, which is another paddling community. All the park districts that run through the upper or that the river runs through. We've been talking to all of those people and we're hoping to do some workshops. We're hoping to get some newsletters out. We're going to put a bunch of signage up, and we have an annual water festival here called the Blue Heron Homecoming. And so we'll have a booth there to talk all about it and how to do it and where you can go for that information. So hopefully, I think we're going to start, ideally, we're going to start installing those in April.
Awesome. Someone asked if you can pronounce your last name for us. I hope I said it right.
No, it's I usually tell people 3 common words, right? Glow, like glows in the dark, chess, the game, ski, right? Like skiing, glow chess ski.
Yeah, that's a good one. So I think if anybody has any last questions, speak now. Otherwise, we have a lot of appreciation for the donut game, which I would like that to be a part of my life too. Might have to bring that one to the lab, but
Hi, Jane. I just want to make a comment.
yeah.
Hi, this is Danita Barnhart, and I'm a member of the Ohio Section Governing Board. So I just want to thank everyone for participating tonight. It is very nice when we have new programming and people participate, and it makes being a part of the leadership even more exciting. So a lot of faces I haven't seen before, so welcome. It probably means that you Jessica recruited you some kind of way to be on the call, but thanks out to Dane and Josh for all your continued efforts, and to Sabna. It's really very much appreciated. The board is very excited about the YP committee, the diversity committee. And so if you are interested, here's my shameless plug. If you are interested in joining any part of the Ohio section of AWWA, please let us know. You can send an email to Dane or just reach out to our website through our staff or email, and we would be happy to get you involved. We need more people to be involved. There's a whole list of committees on the website, so maybe something that interests you. And I encourage you to participate, and I'm always available to answer any questions.
On the committee piece, we just recently formed a source water protection committee in the AWWA.
Yes.
And I am the vice chair. And if you'd
Great.
like to participate in that committee, it would be super awesome too.
Awesome. Is that for OAWWA?
Mhm.
Or, okay, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
that
just-
sounds great. I hadn't heard about that.
Well, we were a subcommittee of the technical committee, and we were just recently, like within the last month or two, approved to be a full committee. So we had our first full committee meeting last week. And so I'm really excited because I think we can do some pretty great things.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I put my email in the chat. So if you're interested in either being involved in the YP committee, or the diversity and inclusion committee, or the new source water committee, I will get you connected to the right people. And I would totally recommend any of the above. It's just been awesome to be involved in OAWWA for me. So yeah, thank you all for coming, and keep an eye out. We'll have this up on YouTube if you want to rewatch or send it or anything like that. And keep an eye out for our next speaker will be in January. So keep an eye out for the announcement of who that will be. It will be the second Thursday of January, just like normal.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for speaking. It was awesome. And yes, to Patty, we usually send, I think she's gone now. We usually send a follow-up email with information and a thank you and all that kind of stuff. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good night.